Hi everyone, welcome. I'm preparing to check in on a couple of my worm bins, and oh yeah, you can see over here I just got done doing some wormery maintenance, some housekeeping that I'm pretty bad at sometimes. You can see now black tub number 4 is now available for use rather than being classified in my tracking system as quote-unquote storing castings. And it freed up space on my shelf over there, which is kind of cool, so I've rearranged things, even opened up a spot on the other end where the new stuff goes. But the ones that we're working on today are a couple of my more senior systems, and one of them is up here. It's the older of the two. All my old stuff is up here. Those things are in migration mode already. Here we're still actively composting, but definitely no bedding, only fast composting, small particle type foods. The reason I've been considering this bin and its pair or its partner bin as sort of an odd couple is because the 60-day age difference. Here, even though we're paired up, we've decided to break loose and drive the older one towards harvest. Here, at 220 days of age, 60 days difference, we were still adding bedding, and over there though, we have sort of matched the feeding style to give them stuff that's not going to last long as leftovers, just small particle or fast composting foods. We're going to get those systems up on the bench, and we're going to get them fed. So let's get started. The feeding they're getting today definitely classifies as either fast composting or small particle size. Coffee and pumpkin, as well as a little bit of my worm chow. So let's get to feeding these little guys. It's here in the older system where we've been withholding bedding, although during the last video I definitely had a little bit of a whoopsie situation happen where I piled bedding into both systems while I was really intending to put none into the older system, so we had to fish it all out. And let's see here. Let's get these things uncovered so we can see how things are progressing. And then what that ended up translating into was all that bedding, which wasn't really supposed to go into the older bin, was just transferred over here. So bedding was definitely in large amounts over here in the younger system. I just saw these little green sprouts popping up, and one of them was growing from this. Some castings attached to it, and I'm wondering what it could be that's still wanting to grow. Oh, whatever. We'll give it some more time to try to settle down. Maybe start breaking down. But yeah, if something's still prepared to grow, a lot of times the worms won't touch it. They're only interested in decomposing matter, not so interested in stuff that's still got a little bit of life in it. Corn cob, I think we'll start over here where we're hopefully going to find somewhat finer material. Before I get my hands all soiled, just a quick overview of the ages. So you knew there was a 60-day difference, 280, 220, I don't know, I might have mentioned it earlier. And as far as feedings go, older bin's been fed 24 times so far, younger bin 18. So, all right, let's get to feeding here. After, I believe, 13 days now since the last check-in, which is one little tidbit of info that I failed to take note of in my little info board there. But I think it was 13 days since our last check-in with these little guys. I'm already seeing signs of the pumpkin they got last time, and that's not too unusual for the pumpkin skins to not have been eaten yet. But after that much time, to find only the skins is pretty normal. It's just paper thin, nothing. I think once they've really eaten every last bit of the juicy, fleshy part of the vegetable matter, the stuff becomes a lot more see-through and even hardly recognizable as having once been orange in color. So you just get that thin outer film remaining. Some of this stuff felt a little bit overly damp to me, so I just, felt like I should try to crumble it apart a little bit there. And that was a close call. I almost pushed a whole bunch of this material over the edge. I'm not sure if you caught that. It was a little clumsiness, which I really got to watch for. I just feel tempted to pull little bits of stuff like this. Corn cob, there's a similar piece, maybe this here, I pulled out over and just tossed over to here. So I'm thinking, here too, a pretty good sized piece of corn cob. Might not be a bad idea to do that. We've even been kind of sharing resources in other ways here. We've taken the feeding zone indicator from both systems, and at the end of the day fed over here. So I think we'll do that again today. We'll just add bedding to the younger one in the form of a couple used feeding zone indicators, because I've got nice new ones. And that might be the extent of the bedding they're getting. I kind of like that idea too, that the bedding is somewhat larger in size and might be holding together well enough at some point in the near future where I might want to just pull it out of there or get it out of my way. Okay. Material looks really nice. Here and there I still find scraps of who knows what. Things like that, I don't know, that's going to go too. I mean, we're still actively feeding here, right? Here's a tomato. Look at that. And I wonder if I just now burst it finally, because I don't remember the last time I added tomatoes to this thing. All right. Bits of corn cob all over the place. Let's just do a random tilling up of the material here and there. I wonder if we'll find any orange fragments of the last feeding here. I believe the younger bin is the one that we estimated to have somewhat more worms living in it, by a couple hundred, I believe. But I mean, that was how long ago, you know? 280-day-old system, 40 weeks. And this one 30 days behind that, so I mean 60 days behind that, so these worms have had plenty of time, perhaps even multiple generations of time to have offspring, and offspring also become mature enough that they too can mate and reproduce. Definitely seeing some signs of the bedding we applied last time. It was just my shredded paper cardboard mix. So let's see, let's really do an excavation through here in the feeding zone. I've not seen any signs of leftover, oh, I spoke too soon. Little leftover piece of pumpkin over there. And possibly other things too. I'm glad to see how all the leftovers of the bedding are pretty much combined with the surrounding materials, because, you know, sometimes what you end up with is just a pile of material that went in, like a mound of bedding, not spread out, not combined with the familiar, comfortable materials the worms like being in, and just sitting there idle, you know. So here it feels like all the bedding they got last time, you know, pretty much went to use, because it's just covered in castings and all well integrated into all the surrounding materials. So it does feel to me like we're nearing the end on being generous with bedding. Only 60 days, you know, maybe that is enough time to say, why don't we here now start switching to larger bedding type materials, and perhaps those types of things that'll break down quickly, like leaves. Definitely not, otherwise you're going to end up with a bunch of leaf stems. Leaf stems I'm still seeing here, but they're all so small. They're really getting there, you know, and soon we won't even see any signs of them, so that's pretty nice over there. Okay. I kind of looked at this feeding and I thought to myself, you know, it didn't seem like much, but that's okay. Still felt like I should come in here and keep things moving. I mean, they were the next system on the roster, due for the next feeding. And here's the coffee portion. Now, my coffee, oops, okay. My coffee applications usually go with a little bit of my worm chow that I showed earlier too. Let's bring that over, and let's not forget to get these older bits of leftover food back into the feeding zone. And, okay. I wondered if I should add grit, but you know, a system like this, systems that have been fed this many times already, have probably had multiple applications of grit already, and the grit, I think, does get reused by the worms. And they can even store it in their bodies, I think. I don't know all the exact details, so don't ask me questions about it, but they do sort of have a way to tuck away a little bit of grit if they should need it for future use, if there's times when there isn't so much of it around and available. So that looked really nice out there. There's a nice moisture content in here, and I just worry sometimes when things are nice and damp, and I know that is going to make my worms really happy, it brings us close to the point where stuff can get muddy and clumpy, and I would not want to see that happen. I like to keep all this material pretty freely flowing and loose, crumbly, but at the same time nice and damp and comfortable for the worms to be in. So yeah, worms everywhere. That's also what I like to see, even though I'm typically just feeding down the middle. And you would expect to see a good number of worms there coming for the food. I do stir stuff around, so leftovers do always make their way all over the place into every section of each of my systems, I believe, in most cases. So that usually makes it pretty comfortable for the worms to be anywhere they want to be. There's always an abundant supply of stuff. And the one important thing that does always need to be somewhat abundant and readily available to them is the moisture, you know, because once the moisture level starts to drop, that becomes pretty uncomfortable for them, and they'll go looking for something better. A little piece of leftover pumpkin there. So things are looking pretty nice here and there, you know, whatever. Things will eventually hopefully break down. We're still actively composting. It's not like we're foraging or trying to get this system ready for harvest or migration or worm depopulation, although maybe I should be starting to think that way a little bit more now. Perhaps one of these would be the last feeding, and perhaps the start of a little period of just foraging. Let them focus on leftovers in the systems and, you know, nibble down anything that remains in here rather than being provided a replenishment of food every so often. And that would probably lead to some really nice material. Perhaps during that time even give the stuff a chance to dry off a little bit, perhaps become a little bit more flaky. All right, so this one kind of self-opened somehow. I don't know how. It was kind of interesting. It just sort of unzippered as a result of something I was doing. I wasn't paying that much attention, but there we go. I think we're pretty much done here. Here we don't have any sort of top coverings. Most of my systems do have top coverings, but I do like to run stuff a little, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So the fact that they don't have top coverings is going to be just fine. They've got feeding zone indicators, so there's a little bit of top covering stuff there. And let's just be careful. I don't want to make a big mess. There's a whole bunch of castings material on the back side of these plastics that has stuck there, presumably because of the ample moisture that's in both systems. But I think that's actually to our benefit. You saw how many worms were everywhere. They were pretty comfortable, just hanging out in every corner of each system, and that's pretty much what I want. All right, that's it for our check-in, everyone, with the odd couple bins. Great time to come up with a new name for these little guys right when they're almost ready to be harvested and relocated. So whatever. I've always referred to these systems as the 60 days apart in age systems, and that just to me seems so awkward. And I felt like Odd Couple seemed to be a nice, catchy little short way to refer to these systems, but yeah, it is pretty late in the game. All right, everyone, I'm getting myself all messed up here. I got to get cleaned up. I'm not going to keep you around for all that boring stuff like cleaning and putting away. Before I go really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.